Rimworld is a video game that has stolen thousands of hours of my life, and with the announcement of patch 1.3 and the new Ideology DLC, I assume that's another few thousand hours I've got to sign off. So I'm going to go through and break down the announcement in a kind of more bite-sized way. I want to give a bit of feedback and some thoughts and ratings on some of the things they've added. At a glance, it seems incredible. So the first and most important thing to know is that 1.3 is going to be available in apparently 2 weeks, or around 2 weeks, of course, depending on how the beta goes, which, by the way, that's now available on Steam, so you can opt into that with the 1.3 preview branch. Ideology will also be released concurrently with this patch, so this is going to be a pretty huge release with both of them coming out. Is there any chance of me finishing our current campaign within 2 weeks? Absolutely not. Now, it's worth mentioning that Royalty's release date was the 24th of February 2020. That came out concurrently with the 1.1 patch, not the current 1.2.3 something. But it has essentially been a year, 4 months, and 10 days since our last DLC. As a result, there's quite a lot of stuff. So I'm going to summarize the free update first, the 1.3 update, and then after that, we'll talk about what has been revealed in Ideology. At the end of the video, I will pour over every single screenshot that they have uploaded with the news post, and we'll see what we can spot that maybe they've not explicitly mentioned, but kind of hidden away for someone to find. So for the 1.3 update, one of the bigger focuses appears to be farms. They've gone pretty heavy on this, so I'm glad that I haven't recently done a series about corralling hundreds of animals around our base. To help facilitate this, they've added not only fences, but the ability to create fenced pens with pen markers and designate areas for particular livestock. Tying into that, there are egg boxes as well for chickens. And who knows, maybe with the 1.3 update of the Porn Morpher mod, you can get some egg boxes for humans as well. They've also added the ability to lead animals, which I wasn't entirely sure about the functionality of, given that you could just designate an area and have the animals move over there by themselves. But of course, I assume the whole point of this is to prevent the need for an excessive amount of areas with the ability to mark off pens and kind of take the animals over to them. Search bars. Finally, we've got search bars. No longer do we need to add 15 mods that each individually add a search bar to different areas of the UI. Now I can search for my abundance of anime furniture mods in style. Now, this next feature is something that would have already come in very handy for our current series, and that is the addition of a memory-style system for faction relations. No longer is it simply a sliding scale between hatred and love. In this, they will remember particular actions, which will, I assume, influence the overall mood. I think this, comboed with things like dynamic diplomacy, maybe even Rimworld, could be a very, very nice combo for a bit more of a living, breathing Rimworld. Then we have combat changes, or what I'm calling the death of kill boxes. Sappers have been massively overhauled, and they've described it as different factions, different eras having different methods of breaking down those kill boxes. So, for example, tribals will have access to tools that are designed for breaking down walls a lot faster. Pirates will use explosives, and there is a new type of mechanoid which will facilitate your end a little bit sooner. In addition to that, you have a bit more control over combat now with the ability to add a drag move order for a group of colonists at the same time to form much quicker lines with giant groups of colonists, especially if you have much larger colonies. I think that's fairly essential. A feature that, of course, we've used very, very frequently from the Actung mod. And the next change might just make this patch a 10 out of 10 by itself. It removes my least favorite minigame from Rimworld, bed juggling. You can pick up and carry downed pawns, colonists, maybe even enemies, I would assume, and move them manually to a new location. No longer do you have to put down 5 sleeping spots and forbid every door in your base to get people tended on the battlefield. And on the subject of that, they now have the ability to use medicine from their inventory and stabilize people in the field. And given that kill boxes are basically dead, that's going to be really handy. As for a few graphical changes, they've added beards to characters. It sounds as if they've remade the character rendering system as well. So not only does that allow for a bit more flexibility, they've said that wounds, body modifications are more clear rather than just being a kind of random decal applied to a character. But those of you on lower-end systems, laptops with integrated graphics, that type of thing might see a legitimate improvement if you've got massive colonies with many, many characters. And as a very boring, quick technical aside here, there is a mod called Graphics Setter which allows you to control things like trilinear filtering on textures. If your character is now rendered in a single complete texture rather than in multiple body parts, you're only applying that to a single texture now rather than all of the many different limbs and whatever else you happen to have modded in. So for this purpose, you could actually get a pretty good performance increase too. And for the final technical side, they've also mentioned that there are modding technical changes with regards to feedback. So maybe something like a native Hogslib logging. So that means you can spam your favorite YouTuber's Rimworld modding channel with logs easier than ever. I'll put a full link to not only the news post, but the full changelog as well down in the description. So if you want to go and read through it all separately rather than my kind of bullet points here, that will make things probably a lot better for you. So then, ideology. So according to Ty, which I assume is Tynan, they could have someone called Ty working at Ludion Studios, which would be incredibly confusing. I'll assume it's Tynan. I'll apologize if it's not. According to Tynan, the ethos behind this is to give, quote, authorship over stories. I have no idea if Tynan sounds like that. I don't actually know what Tynan sounds like, but that's how I assume he sounds in my head. The point of it seems to be to add that inherent drive to your colony by customizing at its core what it is, what your people do, what they're there to do, what they are all about as a group, as a collective. So with it comes this huge new belief system governed by set rules which vary from what beds you want in your colony to how much you hate mushrooms. The core customization of that appears to be the name of your belief system, the nouns that you use for that, 3 memes, and by memes, I mean ideas that self-perpetuate, not vindiesel.jpg. And from what I've counted, 26 minimum precepts. Precepts are the kind of minor changes. For example, do you eat meat in the colony? Or how much you care about corpses is an option on there. That does also make me question, how does that work with particular characters? Say, for example, if they are ascetic or, well, quite the opposite, squeamish. I don't know how they will work that in to making your core belief system not care about corpses, but that going at odds with the way the characters are in themselves. And I like this line from the article. Ideology makes your story into your story more than ever before. The mod potential for this is obscene, of course. There are a couple of other things they've revealed as well, kind of added by ideology that tie into regular gameplay. They've added a new style of quest from the looks of it, something they themselves have referred to as a roguelike challenge. As we all know, I'm incredible at roguelikes. They've added Dryad creatures, which apparently have a symbiotic relationship with special trees. That makes me wonder whether they are on a particular biome. Maybe they are directly correlated to the anima trees and maybe even psychic powers by extent. Then there are a few other minor things that they've added in, but the one that really took my eye is something called an Arco Nexus, a new ending type. I love the idea of getting new different ending win cons into Rimworld. This, I don't want to get too excited. I want to temper my expectations here. This could be the best thing they've ever done with Rimworld, because the ideology system is so perfect when combined with themed mod packs, themed mods, not to mention the potential for future expansion with more official DLC. Comparing it to Royalty at a glance, seems as if they've really opted for a different ideology. What I mean by that is, in my opinion, Rimworld Royalty was a very good DLC because it gave you options. It wasn't mandatory content. There were a lot of new features and a lot of new things you had to understand and learn, but for the most part, it was all things that you could ignore if you didn't particularly like system or wanted to focus on an entirely separate system. For example, the royalty ranking system, you don't have to do that, and it's actually very rare in a series that I will pursue the ability to become a duke and obviously unlock the extra mechanics via that, or even the silence system is something that you can fully ignore and just focus on maybe the new items that royalty adds. But ideology is far more core, I think, to almost all colony building. A completely different perspective shift on this one, in that it's going to be central to pretty much everything you do. Maybe a bit of a double-edged sword, of course, but if this ends up being great, this could be genuinely a game changer. And I don't think Royalty was a game changer for exactly the reasons I talked about, but I think this could legitimately be Rimworld 2.0. My only worry is, maybe we're going too deep. How long before Rimworld becomes real life? I'm not going to be updating to 1.3 immediately. We're in the middle of a pretty sizable campaign, and I don't want to run the risk of ruining anything with that. But I'm very, very curious, especially about the new combat system. So if you've got any experience with it, let me know. I've never personally liked kill boxes. I've understood they're a necessary evil, but they are very samey, aren't they? So if you have any feedback about kill boxes specifically, let me know, and I will revel with you in the comments. Now, for the last part of this video, I'm going to go through every single screenshot they've put on the Steam page, and I want to try and pick each one apart separately. So let's go through all of these screenshots that they've included here. This is in the order which they appear on the article as well. So these will directly kind of correlate to what I was talking about previously. The first screenshot then is the farming changes. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner the new search bar with the highlight effect on the egg box. Looking at the actual map itself and the characters, look at the first character on the bar there. It appears to have that physical damage that they were talking about with the new pawn system. And in fact, look at the third guy as well, missing an eye there. I'm going to have to pull these up slightly higher resolution for my own benefit. Now, it's worth mentioning, I noticed a couple of people talking about this, that the font looks different, the textures look kind of different, sharper. Worth mentioning, these screenshots are all in 4K. Downscaled, I'm downscaling to 1080p. The majority of players, I think, are probably playing in 1080p. So it might be a little bit, not misleading, but a little bit different to what you're used to just because of the resolution by itself. That's nothing to do with the, I assume, the patch or the DLC. What can we see on this one then? Now, the MISC tab has a bunch of new items. Drums, skull spikes on the top bar there. Then we have the new egg box that they talked about, which will hopefully direct the chickens a little bit better into egg laying. Just beyond the stone sculptures, you've got the pen marker, which, as you can actually see, is in both the cow field and the chicken field there. After that, we've got a ritual spot, which I assume ties into something to do with the ideology system. So we'll assume all these screenshots are running ideology rather than just the 1.3 update. You've then got a lectern. Now, that makes me think, can you indoctrinate people into your ideology? Maybe. Given that that's there, could imply that. Could be an entirely new mechanic. We've got the reliquary. Oh, that's interesting. For some... Again, for maybe that indoctrination. Maybe you are expected to build religious buildings to help bring people to your cause. Kind of ties back into what I was talking about earlier, where the beliefs might run at odds with your character's inherent traits. There might be a way to be around that. Maybe a new mood bar then, perhaps with some tracking of how close they are directly aligned to the core colony beliefs. Then after that, we've got a styling station, which I assume is very similar to the vanilla expanded beards styling station. Allows you to change your haircut, your beards, whatever. You can actually see, of course, the beards on the first and third character. Oh, and the fourth character as well. That blends into his shirt quite nicely. You've got to match your duster and your beard. We've got a gibbet cage. A gibbet cage. Oh, like giblets. Ah, for putting people in. Gibbet cage? I'm going to Google that word now because I'm not in... I'll be honest. I don't think I'm particularly upset if I'm not in favor of the word gibbet. A gallows. Ah, there you go. Hang up a body on a gibbet. Well, there we are. So that is somewhere for putting people. Maybe prisoners. That could be quite nice. Then we've got a light ball, very appropriately right after the cage for people. We've got a disco ball and a loudspeaker, which I believe is in one of these upcoming screenshots. Is there anything they've kind of hinted at? Is there any slight thing that we haven't noticed on there that they haven't explicitly drawn attention to? Well, of course, you've got the leads in the center with the animals, which, of course, they do talk about. You've got fence gates or some sort of new gate type there. The cat textures look different, but that could just be because I'm used to playing with so many modded textures. I can't see anything else there that would imply new mechanics or features besides what we've already seen. Yeah, I think that more or less covers that one. Let's move on to screenshot number 2. So this is a screenshot showcasing the new system for faction relations. Very simple. Look around the edge here, see if we can spot anything new. We didn't know if they'd hide anything kind of subtly. Can't see anything at a glance there. What we do have, though, is a breakdown of how that works. So there's natural goodwill and natural goodwill range. So the one they are hovering over there is a rough outlander union, and that is affected by them being a natural enemy. So I assume certain faction types will have just a natural inclination towards the player colony. So things like savage tribes, pirate bands too, probably follow that same system. Natural goodwill range 100 to -80. Natural goodwill is based on the faction identities and beliefs. Oh, interesting. That's something they didn't explicitly mention, but that's actually quite a nice feature. So if you were also a bloodthirsty band of horrible cannibals, maybe the pirates would like you quite a lot. That's a very cool system. So the Empire might be at odds with you naturally because of your incompatible beliefs. Oh, that adds a kind of feel to it that I never actually considered before. Okay, and I assume if you're just kind of a neutral, regular, trying to survive colony, you'll probably be at regular odds with the Civil Outlander Unions, the Genital Tribes, that type of thing. Very interesting. All goodwill effects are multiplied by 125% when moving towards natural goodwill. Interesting. That's a very cool mechanic. I didn't actually consider that before. See some of the new fences there being used as well as a kind of boundary box. I can't see anything else that they're kind of hinting at. Looking at the sidebar, specifically some of the text there, but that all seems just to be a showcase of that natural goodwill. Well, this one's a busy one. Okay. So in the inventory, you can quite clearly see there is medicine. They have lawman selected. Lawman's not actually tending. This is obviously a screenshot showcasing the new base destruction mechanics. The ability for them to actually break into your base without going through an open door or a particular kill zone, kill box, kill corridor, whatever that happens to be. Now, I'm curious how the injuries are correlating to... They did say that that's a bit more of a thorough system. Oh, what is that weapon up there? Above the door. That is obviously got to be the breaching tool that they used to get through the walls then, the tribal breaching tool. You see how it's kind of a mattock-style item. Now, the injuries then, sorry to go back to that one, Speedy has kind of injuries on the lower torso. I wonder if that correlates perhaps to specifically just torso damage. Zero has an injury on the eye and the torso. I wonder if those are drawn a lot more indicatively of what's actually going on rather than just being kind of randomly applied. Interesting. Outside of that then, can't see anything that isn't, again, explicitly stated besides that new breaching tool that tribal nations will have. This one's horrifying. Now these, I assume, are the new mechanoids, I believe they were called termites. But interestingly, the pikemen also look slightly different as well. Maybe I'm just too used to some HD retextures. But those definitely have a range weapon. I wonder if it's specifically a breaching range weapon. Look towards the kind of... In the top right quadrant of the screen, there's those kind of squares being exploded from a shot from that mechanoid. They do kind of look like termites too. So that would imply to me that these are specifically the breaching mechanoids. And then in the top left quadrant, we've got two characters which are... connected to, or three characters, I guess, that are connected with some sort of psychic power. Maybe they've just retextured maybe something like neural heat dump, something like that. And if that is how neural heat dump works in the game as it is right now, it's very different to how I recognize. It's too many mod syndrome. D- for colonist positioning. Just absolutely awful. You must have known those mechanoids were coming for you. Then we have, in stark contrast to the last one, I think there's quite a lot to pick apart in this image, the disco room. So the more I look, the more things I'm spotting with this one. So obviously the disco speakers there with the kind of disco balls, the lighting effects, probably relevant for parties. Now there are these ritual spots that we saw from the previous image used at the top there. So I wonder if you can set an ideology up, what were they called? The precepts, that was it. I wonder if the precepts may have something to do with partying. A ritual, disco is ritual. I have always said that. Now, outside of that, looking around the image, look at the animals specifically. So, towards the bottom part of the image on the red carpet, there is, there's some stuff. Yeah, there really is some things. There's a green thing, and there's also a orange thing. They're boglins. I think they've added boglins to Rimworld. In the dining room to the left-hand side as well, there's another one of the horrible monsters. Under the dining room table is a rug. I haven't seen a rug design like that in Rimworld. And similarly, over towards the left with that, with the party Labrador, is another rug design as well. Above that is a picnic table indoors with a lamp next to it. Not sure about the base design here. Oh, and actually look up towards the bedroom as well on the very top left. There's another rug design in there. The other thing that jumped out to me is the statues. What have they got going on there then? Got a couple of new statue designs. Both a large statue, a medium statue, and a smaller statue all appear to be unique. Hats? Hats? What are the hats there? We've got hats, animal masks, and maybe new hairstyles too? The DJ is also dressed up like a bear or a saber tooth. There's a lot going on. A lot of base design, a lot of furniture. Now, what is that? All the way up in the top... What is that? Top left-hand corner above that tree. What are you? Of course. I've analyzed the pixels and I have absolutely no idea. This one also has a lot going on for it, but it is kind of these things that we have seen hinted at in previous images. So the reliquary in that central room with the gold statue holding a giant cross. There's a lot of iconography here, right? Baby with a halo. There's also a man holding stone tablets with a halo behind him as well. There's some prayer mats. Maybe that then is how you will... There has to be some sort of hard religion system. Some sort of... I don't want to say it. Indoctrination maybe is a factor here. I mean, it's got to be, right? Because like I said, how else would you get your people to conform to your beliefs so well? There are some of the drums up there. What is that at the top? Some sort of debris? Maybe that's a new ship chunk just above the outdoor reliquary. Bottom right-hand corner has the styling station with a ritual marker by it. I mean, sure, why not? Cutting hair and not cutting hair is a ritual in plenty of real-life ideologies. Why not here as well? Then, of course, on the pier there, they are setting up a bunch of paper lanterns. So, Eastern Han Dynasty confirmed for Rimworld. At long last, the thing I've been petitioning Tynan for. And there's another one of those animal masks. Furry ideology? Well, swiftly moving on. This one, now, this is the one where I thought to myself, look at how unique every single one of these colonies has appeared. Everyone has their own aesthetic, and obviously they've done that very intentionally with the core base design. The way the characters appear, some of the new clothing that they're wearing. What are the moats as well? You see the skull moats there as well. Is that them? Is that a death chant, maybe? A lot to break down in this one then. New flooring types in both the top building and the left building, and the bottom building, and the right building. Okay, let me try that one again. New flooring absolutely everywhere. Some of those new statues, now look at the theming on the statues. They're all kind of desiccated bodies, corpses, lots of skulls and that type of thing. Skull lanterns, skull torches, I should say, as well, around the base. Man, I love this, because it seems so easy to theme a particular colony now without downloading just a whole bunch of mods to theme it in a particular way. So in the center there, they've got some sort of sacrifice, I don't know, blood ritual. And there's a couple of characters worth noting that have weird eyes. Blindness. Hang on, one of the precepts was blindness. Is this a colony that intentionally blinds their people as part of some sort of demonic ritual? And that's incredibly high tier. I'll buy the DLC based on that alone. You've already sold me. Some new clothing types there as well. Of course, the crown or the helmet, whatever that happens to be, for the character kind of central to the point above the blinding ritual, for lack of a better word. Oh, and look at Duke down there on the medical slab. Quite clearly has been blinded. Colony that blinds their colonists. That is so high tier. Now we get into the kind of meat of the new ideology system. So the new interface has a few buttons that I'm not entirely sure what they might do. You've got the scroll, which I assume is, say, perhaps your... Maybe that affects the name and the nouns used for this particular faction. So in this case, they've called it the Spacer Man Porkism. And the nouns for that are... Or sorry, the adjectives. Man Porky and Man Porkist. Now, I assume the scroll changes that. What if the skull and crossbones is your, say, map symbol, rather than the generic blue house that almost all of the... Oh, you can see it actually up there, can't you? In the slightly over on that same UI. I wonder if you can adjust that, or I wonder if it shows you what it correlates to... A kind of general theming for ideology. So say, for example, that ideology is associated with pirates. Then there is a skull, which could mean anything. And then there is a Triforce, which again could be anything. The top part then are the three central memes. Flesh, purity, pain is virtue, and cannibal. If I had to take a guess, the points in the top right-hand corner of all of those memes probably correlate to the amount of maximum points you can spend on memes. So say, for example, you have 8 points in total. They've taken 2 3.1 and a 2-point meme. I think that's probably fairly safe to assume. I never knew anything when I was fat and happy and constantly pleasuring myself. Oh no. This truth only came to me when I was starved and hurt. Living in a polluted body is no human life at all. Every time I share the body of a foe with a new friend, I make sure they understand this. Murder by Gonzalo Paiashoto? Wow. I googled Gonzalo Paiashoto. That's not a quote from anything. So I assume that's a dynamically generated thing similar to say, the inscriptions on sarcophagus or artwork. And below that are all of the precepts. Now, the ones they've chosen for this particular fun-sounding faction is Cannibalism is mandatory, required, and ravenous. So it's not only mandatory, but I assume celebrated. Body modification is abhorrent, so purity of the flesh, and drug use there is prohibited. Interesting. Comfort is ignored. Meat eating, mildly required. I would argue that that's, well, mandatory with cannibalism. Pain is idealized. Scarification minor and slap bed preferred. So maybe that scarification again ties into, look a little bit lower, as blindness. So you can change clothing based on whether you're male or female. Well, that's going to lead to some extreme degeneracy. Biosculpting. Biosculpting. Those are words I like the sound of. Biosculpting maybe allows you to... Okay, so we could look at it in the innocent way of it allowing you to perform plastic surgery on your pawns, changing their appearance. Who knows? Weight, size, hair, whatever. Or, we assume it from a Rimworld perspective in that you turn your... Oh my god, the first image we saw with the party Labrador. What if those creatures are people that have been sculpted into those? That's my theory. You heard it here first. I'm copywriting that. They hate blindness. They don't care about corpses. So you can adjust that. Corpses, execution, fungus. Diversity of thought. Well, we're going to stamp that out. Insect meat. They despise. Physical love is spouse only. Oh, interesting. My god, I wish I had this before I started this current series, eh? Eating nutrient paste is disgusting. I think that's probably just the default one, right? Research is normal. So you could shun research, but what bonuses would that give? That's what I'm trying to consider with a lot of this. Obviously, there's an objective gameplay bonus to not caring about corpses, but what is the payoff for that? Maybe you can only adjust a certain amount of precepts? Or maybe the more things you change, the harder it is to keep people aligned with a central ideology. That's my thought right now. Also worth noting, look at the size of this freaking scroll bar. This is only about a third, maybe slightly over, what you can view in total. So the other options there are skull spikes, slavery, organ use, women's spouses, men's spouses, and marriage names. So you can customize not just the central ideology, but just generally how your faction conducts itself as well. You could make it far more mild, rather than having a, say, flesh purity, cannibal faction. You could just have it so that your colony prefers, women's names when marrying over men's. Something a lot more innocuous than biosculpting. I'm not sure with this one. And I'm not sure they're sure either, and I think that's the point. So what we clearly have is some sort of hotbox, I think is the correct term. They're seeing these spectral totems, perhaps? There's some sort of thing going on in the center there. I assume that kind of, how do I say this on YouTube without getting the channel flagged? There's some sort of device, perhaps, for burning plants to release a particular smoke from them. Then we have some sort of marking in the middle, again, might be for ritualistic purposes, but I assume those spectral totems are a side effect of whatever they're doing with that particular chimneyed instrument. What appears to be some variation on tribal furniture as well, like rough stone tables. What appears to be some sort of just stone block as a table in the center, some sort of makeshift stone table. Lots of new types of headwear there as well. The person at the very back room having some sort of iron mask. And of course, new artwork as well in that central room. New kind of artwork and carvings, especially in that top room. Those are two giant statues. That's just occurred to me. Now, very bizarrely to see in Rimworld, bottom part of the image there shows a burnt out car. That might have been what we saw maybe in the screenshot with the party Labrador. I hate that that's a thing now. Now, if I were to guess, that creature that is the one that's not an elephant, basically, or a cow, the creature, the kind of orange thing in the bottom right-hand quadrant, I wonder if that's a Dryad. Because look at the particular tree type. Maybe something that is kind of parallel to the anima tree. You've got an orange tree there with some other sort of orange anima grass type spread from it with two creatures that both kind of share a similar theme. If I had to guess, those are probably your Dryads. And there's a new floor type in the bedroom in the top corner there. Outside of that, I think everything is standard Rimworld, which is to say, still batshit crazy. What's that you say? Even more cannibals? Well, we can see the cage at work there, the gibbet, or gibbet, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Also worth noting, there's barbed wire at the top part of the map there too. Interesting. Maybe a new defensive structure to help counter the lack now of kill boxes. They also have... Oh, look, that's what it appears to be from that the Labrador map. It's just a car engine. Or what appears to be a car engine, anyway. Let's go from left to right, because there's a lot to break down here. So, skull spikes, first thing to note there. Then, in the room at the bottom... So, what I thought was some sort of area in the blinding ritual map, it might just be some sort of decoration, some sort of macabre decoration, because they've also got it in that room where they're butchering human-like characters. In the center is some sort of gigantic meat feast. Looks as if it might be some sort of new furniture type for storing human meat. Perhaps you load human meat into it, and then they can feast from it as part of a ritual, I would assume, because there is, of course, regular human meat you can see above them directly there. Tang eating something. What are their what are the color of the names? What do those correlate to? Are those prisoners? Why would they just be roaming around like that, though? Maybe they're indoctrinating the prisoners. No, because that's a different color to prisoner names. That's a much more of a sharp yellow. I have no clue. I wouldn't be able to begin to guess on that one. Maybe it's people who are in some sort of cannibal-induced trance. There you go. That's my best get for that one. Top right-hand corner, you have a giant skeleton map. I quite enjoy that. There's a cougar in a pen with a man in a cage. I quite like that. It's a bit of psychological warfare. And a new design for standing lamps in the bottom right-hand corner. Again, another table design there in the furthest right building. And new chair designs too. Wow, there is a lot to see here. I wonder if they're kind of graphical variations or whether they're entirely new types of furniture. Oh, now look at this. Body sculpting, I assume, is what's happening in this central area. What else is there going on here then? So if I had to guess, we've got at the very top room there some sort of production facility. It's next to a... Okay, so there's one of those lecterns in there too. Maybe this is a technological kind of ideology based around the worship of machinery and things like that. Very sci-fi. You've got fabrication bench next to a bunch of things that are making Anatoly sparkly? I'm not entirely sure what that might... Maybe some sort of training facility is my guess for now. Then we've got a giant research room. Worth noting, again, the new types of furniture in there with that kind of hexagon emblem. Is that a new type of texture for an AI persona core, or is that an entirely new type, similar to the Teproth persona cores? Not entirely sure on that one. I think it's a fairly safe bet to assume that the central area is the body sculpting. Then in the bottom area, there appears to be a new type of vitals monitor. Maybe a new type of spacer vitals monitor. Might even be something far more simple. Maybe a regenerator. Weird. Okay. New types of doors. Maybe a new texture for auto doors there. I wonder then, if to help theme your colony, the mod vanilla texture expanded variation, or some variation on that name anyway, came out recently with the ability to toggle between textures depending on, you know, your preference, or you can have it set to random. I wonder if that's the same thing. I wonder if these are still just regular 2x2 tables, and instead you can choose the graphic, maybe even based on your ideology. You apply a texture. Maybe that's what that skull was. He's beginning to think. Rugs. They wouldn't have that many different rug types. They would just retexture the same rug so that you don't have so many definitions. I would assume when you pick an ideology, you get to select your overall theming for your base. So these people being a machine ascendancy have that kind of hexagon-based motif. The lamps then, maybe there are no new standing lamps. Maybe it's the lamps have taken on that more industrial look. I would almost put money on that being what is going to happen there. Oh. Is that what I think it is? Is that an arena? At long last. We've done an entire arena arc before, a tournament arc within an arena. So again, look at the floor coverings and the statues. I am going to go ahead and work on the assumption that I'm correct in my assumption that that is a theme that you can apply to a particular colony. So let's assume that then, rather than pointing out every new piece of kind of furniture, the rug over there on the right-hand side, and of course in this kind of central arena itself, I assume those around the edge are, they could be some sort of security, they could be some sort of trap that if you walk next to it or near it, you take some damage. I think it's probably far more likely they are just statues there for decoration. So we have Eugene and Two Order there fighting in the center as part of a ritual. Massive fan of that. Huge. That is going to make so many colonies so much more bonding experience. I really love the... I assume the apparel is all unique new apparel rather than all just being kind of retextured things again. It's giving me mad Fallout vibes. Especially the guy in the center, Howl. Why do you look so familiar? I'm a huge fan of that. I think that's going to be... it's going to be a lot of fun. Building just an awful piece of shit colony now is going to be Gonna be easier than ever, as if it wasn't already fairly easy. This one appears to be the aftermath of a mechanoid attack. Perhaps, no, I better know what this is. This is almost certainly that new roguelike mechanic they talked about where you can attack a base. It is worth noting, of course, if you go and look at the original article, this will be a lot more clear because it'll be next to a caption. I've just got them all loaded in as a slideshow here. So this is almost certainly one of the raids, again, for lack of a better word. What is Potato doing there in the top right-hand corner? What are you doing, Potato? Interacting with some sort of machine there. I've noticed quite a few of those. Hiroshi as well. Look, over to the top left-hand corner. I wonder if they're learning something, maybe getting technology or maybe even getting personal skills. There are quite a few of those machines around, and what appear to be... Are those ancient crypto sleep caskets in the center to differentiate them from crypto sleep caskets that you yourself build? Maybe they're more circular now. Okay, and then we've got some sort of... Are those shelves in that storage room? Oh, you can't do this to me. Don't include shelves as base game Rimworld. You could put so many modders out of work. I'm well aware there are shelves. What I meant is storage options, essentially. So that is almost certainly one of the new raid mechanics, isn't it? I love the kind of debris just over to the side there. Obviously, the burnt out, whatever that is. I want to see some giant mechanoid. I want to see a mechanoid that large. So these raids look as if they're going to be a whole lot of fun and a whole lot of blood pressure. Again, look at these statues on this map. There are so many unique ones. The top... the top left-hand corner, I'm loving the dichotomy of a friendly-looking snowman right next to a six-limbed eldritch monstrosity. There is also a spiked bull with horns there, a smaller version of that six-armed creature. This is obviously a much more of an eldritch base, some sort of sacrifice going on in the center to transform yourself into one of these multi-limbed beings. I'm calling it now. They're leaning into the eldritch side of things. You've got the crazy cannibal farm exploring the kind of depravity of human nature. You've got the drugs-based ones. What if this one is pure, full-on magic? Some sort of evil cult ritual. I like that. And in fact, look at the only reason that also makes me believe that is the mushrooms in the cave. With the top left-hand corner, there are these torches that appear to have an almost kind of eldritch, kind of fungal feel to them. Maybe this is like some great mushroom worship. I feel like that treads dangerously close to the kind of drugs theme that we saw before with the Hotbox. I like to think this is something darker, so that's what I'm going with in my in my head canon. Oh, look at that! Now this is perhaps the Dryad mechanic, maybe a bit more realized. So are all these creatures perhaps related to that? Then I was kind of hoping it would be about flesh sculpting, body modifications, but there are a lot of I wonder if they are just quite literally fungal or kind of plant-based animals. Flora, fauna. Fergie in the center there is tending to one of the orange trees. That has to be the Dryad system. I don't think there's any debate for that one. So this is a bit more of a, say, a naturalist colony. You might notice their food stuff is only berries. They've got a goose statue. Of course they do. An alternate way to get a kind of harmony with nature without using anima grass is very, very interesting. And it looks as if they're not a tribal nation either. That might imply, because of course you wouldn't really use the whole anima grass anima tree thing if you are high enough technology. You go for the silent neuroformers. So I wonder if this is a middle ground between that ultra tech kind of imperial neuroformer and the tribal anima tree worship level. This is interesting though. I don't really know what to take from all of this. I mean, how beneficial can a bunch of blobby looking animals really be? Do they have kind of an ambrosia appearance to anyone else? Maybe that could be it. But again, I think that might lean too heavily into the drugs aspect. This one also ties into it. So you've got your Dryad tree, we'll call it, in the center there. Over to the side, you've got that recurring motif of the reliquary. Again, I'm thinking the kind of ideology, enforced worship, enforced dogma, methods of making people conform with your beliefs within the colony over there too. There is a bench. That's worth noting. Outside of that, though, this is all, again, kind of recurring things that are coming back. There is a lot of ambrosia I'm noticing around. Maybe I wasn't too far off with the ambrosia guess. But notice this time as well, none of the animals. So there might be alternate ways to approach using this tree, or maybe this is a way to introduce it. This might be the start of the colony that we saw previously. This has to be the Nexus event, right? The kind of confluence of the two aspects of Rimworld Psychic, both natural through the anima trees, and then the almost kind of Archotech, high tier, neuroformer style psychic powers there in the center. This, I assume, is the game-winning condition. I have no idea what they're doing. It doesn't look as if they're doing a huge amount. Kazuko in the center is doing something with that large Archotech structure. There's a lot of kind of ruins around. And of course, the edge of the map is covered in animatries. That makes me dread any sort of... Maybe that's how it works. Combat, firefights, meteor storms, natural disasters, destroying the animatries. Maybe they grow as it charges. No idea. No idea how to interpret this. And who knows what... Maybe psychically ascend to a new form of purely consciousness being. That sounds fairly on brand. That's my bet for that one, because I'll be honest, I've absolutely no idea what else to gather from this. And finally, who knows, maybe this is the Nexus event and Santa's got a lot of explaining to do. We have Christmas, where some lucky boy has, man there in the center has just unboxed, I assume, a bunch of insect jelly. Merry Christmas, man. Don't know what you did in a previous life to deserve that. Worth noting, take from this what you will, a lot of Christian iconography, I've noticed kicking around. Don't know why that is relevant. Just thought I'd mention it, because they've kind of made a point of avoiding that before. But a big man with a halo holding, you know, stones with quite clearly inscriptions on it, and a dude carrying a big cross. Weird. I mean, of course, Rimworld is, I believe, in lore set in actual Earth current time, is very distant future, so will make a lot of sense. But that is our final screenshot. Is there anything I missed in any of those? Point them out to me. Let me know. Do you agree with my theories? I think there has to be... I think I would put... I'm going to put my non-existent channel cred on on the indoctrination system and ideology system, some sort of maintaining the beliefs of your colony and ensuring everybody conforms. There was also that precept, don't forget, that allowed for free thought. I'm excited for this. Especially with, honestly, the theming alone. I love the idea of that, being able to give you slap a coat of paint across your colony to keep everything... That has genuinely been the make or break point for certain mods with me, the ability... It's kind of lack of cohesion with the rest of what you've got going on with the base. The Flesh series that we did, of course, was very particularly focused on that. And this series, of course, even with the Rimworld logo in the background being slightly green, makes it feel a lot more, again, cohesive. So I do like that as a mechanic. That alone is a big win for me. I like the look of this. Obviously, only time will tell how good it is, but I think this is a 10 out of 10 DLC. Thank you all for watching. Content I don't normally do, of course. If you enjoyed it, good. Thanks for watching to the end. I mean, it would kind of suck if you didn't at this point, eh? Stay tuned. We are currently playing a playthrough where we are... sadly, indoctrinating our people into a belief system propagated by an Archotech man, and they're doing very particular things at very particular times. So, you might say I'm a little bit annoyed that ideology is coming out midway through that particular series. Maybe we'll be able to update, who knows.